So you've taken that next step in your career. You've been promoted, and you're now a team leader, supervisor, or manager.
Congratulations! That's a major milestone. But leadership brings a completely new set of workplace conversations that can feel intimidating, especially face to face.
It sure does. Imagine a situation where one of your team members misses an important deadline. You know you need to address it face to face. You can't hide behind a quick email or a translated message. You have to sit down, look them in the eye, and have the conversation. And in that moment, you freeze up a little.
Because when English isn't your first language, that pressure is doubled. Most professionals fall into two common traps here. The first trap is the blunt trap. This is when you translate directly from your native language and your feedback becomes too direct. You might sound aggressive or overly critical, even though you don't mean to. And then there's the vague trap. This is when you try so hard to be polite that your feedback becomes soft and unclear. You walk around the issue, and the team member leaves the conversation without realizing they actually made a mistake.
Now, this isn't about a lack of leadership ability. Usually, it's just a lack of clear, specific English phrases that help you be honest and give really constructive feedback.
And that's what we're going to focus on today. We'll show you how to keep your message clear and how to soften your tone so your feedback stays honest without hurting trust.
All right, let's jump straight into it.
Well, Theo, maybe you can start off telling us, what's the very first thing we should do when we sit down face to face with the person? And sometimes this is someone you've worked with for years, and now they have to report to you.
Moving from teammate to manager is a big step, isn't it? It can feel so uncomfortable when yesterday you were grabbing coffee as teammates, and today you have to address a mistake. And because of situations like that, step one is critical. Focus on what happened, not the person. Talk about the specific situation, the task, or the result that needs improvement, not their personality, their habits, or your history together.
That makes so much sense. Because if you sound too formal with a former coffee buddy, it feels cold or fake. But if you sound too casual, they might not take the mistake seriously. And regardless of who the person is, if someone on your team messes up, easy to feel frustrated and think, she's always careless, or he's always making mistakes. But remember, this person is here because they bring real value and skills to the team. Your job is to support them, not make the conversation feel like an attack.
Absolutely. When you separate the action from the relationship, you're not acting like the boss. You're acting like a partner, trying to solve a problem together. When we start sentences with a blaming, you did this or you did that, people become defensive straight away. And when someone feels attacked, they stop listening to the advice you're trying to give.
So how do we actually change our words and get the other person to understand their mistake?
Focus on what you observed. You can start with phrases like, I noticed, or I saw. For example, instead of pointing fingers and saying, you missed the deadline, you say, I saw that the report arrived after our 3 p.m. deadline.
Listen to how different that sounds. You're not calling the person lazy or always late to get things done. You're simply describing a clear fact about the work.
And right after that, you can add a simple, supportive question. Something like, is everything okay on your side? Or did you run into any unexpected blockers?
I love that question. Did you run into any blockers? For anyone listening, a blocker is just a problem, a delay or challenge that stops your work. Now, Theo, what makes this so powerful is that you're pointing out the delay while showing you're actually there to help them fix it. You explain the problem clearly, but you also show that you care about helping them succeed.
That's the key. And that's your first step to giving feedback with confidence. You keep the conversation focused on what happened, not the person, so you can solve the problem together with trust.
Once we've pointed out what happened using I noticed or I saw, what comes next? What's the next step?
Now, in step 2, you move on to explaining the impact. Tell them calmly how the issue affects the rest of the team, the project, or the client.
Why is explaining the impact so important?
If you just say, "This report is late," it can feel like a lecture. But when you explain the impact, they understand why the work matters.
So instead of saying, you caused problems for the team, we explain what happened as a result of the issue?
That's the idea. An easy way to connect the facts to the result is using this structure. When this happens, it means that. For example, when the report arrives after the deadline, it means our team has less time to review the information and complete the weekly forecast. Or, when the report arrives late, it means we may not have the information we need before the client meeting.
Look at how neutral that is. You're not saying you don't care about deadlines. You're explaining the effect of the situation.
That's the difference between blaming someone and helping them understand. Good feedback is not about making people feel bad. It's about helping them see the impact of their work and giving them the chance to improve.
And that makes the conversation much more productive. The person understands the problem, but they also feel respected.
Right. You keep the standard clear, you explain why it matters, and you create a conversation where people can improve.
So we've explained what happened, and we've shown why it matters. But there's one more challenge. How do we tell someone what needs to change without sounding rude or like we're giving orders?
That's where step 3 comes in. It's about using softer language when we give suggestions.
This is something some people struggle with. In some languages and cultures, being direct can sound confident and professional. But in English workplace conversations, very direct commands can sometimes sound too harsh.
For example, saying, "Rewrite this, fix this page, send it again." The message is clear, but the tone can feel quite strong.
So how can we keep our message clear, but make it sound more like working together?
A few simple phrases can make a big difference. You can say, "It might help to," for example, "It might help to start the report a little earlier next time." Another useful phrase is, "I was thinking we could," for example, "I was thinking we could review the deadline together and see what would work better." And you can also ask, "Have you considered?" For example, "Have you considered setting a reminder before the deadline?"
I like that because the message is still clear. You're not avoiding the issue. You're just making it feel like a conversation instead of a command.
Exactly. That's the balance great managers look for. You keep the standard high, but you also show respect. You guide people towards a better result without making them feel attacked.
That's what makes feedback so much easier to accept. People are much more open to change when they feel supported. So now we've explained what happened, talked about the impact, and shared our suggestions using softer words. How do we actually finish the conversation in a positive way?
Ask a question to build the solution together. That's step 4. You bring them into the plan instead of just telling them what to do.
Why is that so important? Why not just explain the problem and tell them what to do next?
Because when people feel like they're only being told what they did wrong, they can become quiet or defensive. A question shows that you want to help them solve the problem. You're not just pointing out a mistake, you're working with them to find a better way forward.
So, what are some natural questions managers or team leaders can ask?
You can start with, what support do you need from me? So in your one-to-one meeting, you might say, what support do you need from me to make this deadline easier? Another useful question is, how do you feel about this plan? A full question might sound like, how do you feel about trying this new checklist next week? And you can also offer a follow-up. Would it help if we checked in again next week to see how things are going?
I like that because the conversation doesn't just end with a problem. It ends with a plan. The person knows what needs to change, but they also know they have support.
That's what great leaders do. They keep expectations clear while helping their team reach them. Good feedback isn't about finding fault. It's about helping people improve and succeed.
Let's put all 4 steps together into one conversation so you can hear how this sounds in real life.
So, imagine you're sitting down face to face with a team member named Alex. You start with step 1, describing what happened. Hi, Alex. Thanks for sitting down with me today. I noticed the project draft came in at 5 p.m. yesterday, after our 3 p.m. deadline.
Then you move to step 2, explaining the impact. When the draft arrives late, it means we have less time to review everything before the client meeting.
Now, in a real conversation, this is where you pause and give Alex a moment to speak or explain what happened. Then you move to step 3, giving a helpful suggestion. It might help to create an earlier checkpoint before the final deadline, so we have more time to review the work.
And finally, step 4, ending with a supportive question. What support do you need from me to make that timeline work?
Notice how natural that sounds. You didn't ignore the problem, but you also didn't make the person feel attacked.
You were clear about the standard, explained why it mattered, and worked together on a solution.
And that is what constructive feedback should sound like. Clear, respectful, and focused on helping people improve.
Now it's time for today's workplace practice. Imagine this. A team member missed an important meeting and didn't let you know beforehand. How would you start that conversation using step 1 and step 2?
Write your answer in the comments below. Try using the phrases from today's episode and share how you would handle the situation.
And don't forget to try the quick quiz in the description. It's a simple way to review the key phrases.
Thanks so much for spending your time with us today. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more practical English conversations.
Keep practicing, keep communicating clearly, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care. Bye, everyone.